I got the message.
Oh, you did? Okay, very good. All right. Yep, here we go. Here comes YouTube. Okay. All right. All right. I am here with Beth Flynn from Be Inspired Leadership Consultants. Beth, thanks for having this discussion with me tonight. It is a pleasure to talk to you again. Beth and I are colleagues from back in my Ohio State University days when I worked for Ohio State University back in the 2000s. And of course, you know me if you follow me on YouTube or TikTok or Facebook or any of the social medias. I'm Sue with Carmine Media. One of my favorite topics is talking about women in leadership and some of the challenges that we face, of course, and how to get past some of the barriers that we face when we're trying to grow in our leadership role, when we're trying to move up that corporate ladder. And Beth is a certified expert in talking about those things. So I'm so thrilled to have you here with me tonight, Beth. And I want you to talk to us. Tell us, a little bit about yourself, how you got where you are, and just a little bit about your business. Be inspired, so that the audience knows a little bit about you.
Well, I'm really glad to be here, Sue. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm really glad for everybody who's joining us or listening to us at a later time, because it's so important that we're talking about women's leadership today. And I was telling Sue before we got on that back in the early 70s, I was in elementary school. My oldest sister went to college and she came home and she taught me Helen Reddy's I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar lyrics. And I used to sing that song all the time. And here I am working in women's leadership today, many, many years later. And I retired from the Ohio State University Leadership Center in December of last year and started my own business, which is called Be Inspired Leadership Consultants. And what Be Inspired Leadership is all about is helping people, especially leaders, discover their unique gifts. What is it, those things that they have to share with other people? And when we share them with the world, we are living our life's purpose. And hence we are changing the world. We're making the world a better place. And the other thing that I also like to do a lot of work with is helping teams become stronger. So I work a lot with Gallup Strengths. I'm a certified coach. I'm certified in DISC, and I do a lot of team retreats. And so I like to help teams operate at their best, because I believe that leadership is about knowing yourself first, knowing what gifts you have and what you want to bring, what you bring to the table that's unique and different than from other people, and then who you need on your team with you, because we can't be it all. We can't be all things to all people. We all have our unique strengths and our unique gifts. And then when we work together, we're stronger instead of trying to do it all. So, and one of the things I felt, and Sue, I know you agree with me, is the importance of women as leaders. And we need to be, this is a really important time where we need to be banding together, and we as women working together to promote other women. And so this is a perfect opportunity for Sue and I to discuss women's leadership tonight. And that's why I'm so excited to be talking with you, Sue.
You've been beating that drum for a long time. And yeah, I
Just don't.
remember 20 years ago, you were talking about this when I was coming up in my leadership role at Ohio State University. And it's funny that, when we talked about having this discussion, one of the first things that you said to me when we sort of reconnected through my Facebook group, actually,
Yes.
when you popped up in there, I was so thrilled to see you. And one of the first things that you said to me as a comment in there was that it's lonely as you move up, especially for women. And I felt such a weight off of my shoulder when you said that, because in a leadership role as a female, I am sometimes lonely. Like, it is sometimes hard for me to find friends, because as you move up, there are fewer and fewer people that you can be friends with. You obviously you can't be friends with the people who you supervise. There are fewer women in leadership roles, period. You don't have always access to the men because they're afraid of it looking improper, or they don't invite you along with them to the golf outings or the drinks after work or those kinds of things. We don't have access to those activities, which is part of the problem, why we're not in their inner circle and the affinity bias that happens there. So I was honestly relieved when you said that, because I felt like, what's wrong with me? Why is it so hard to make friends in the corporate environment with other women leaders who are like me? Well, it's because there's so few of us, for one thing, but talk to me about that. What's been your experience, and how do you overcome that?
And it's not just my experience. I've talked to many different women, and as they've moved up the organizational chart, it just gets lonelier and lonelier. And we feel like we have to be all things to all people. And that, and we need each other. I go back, and I know that I'm really going to sound old, but I go back to the Cheers, back to the TV show Cheers, where everybody knew your name. We
Oh,
we need to be in community with other women leaders, but it's hard to find. And so your peer group might be your competitors. Other directors and other organizations who are your direct competitors becomes your peer group, but it's how do we make connections and how do we help other women succeed? Because the more we work together, women are experts at collaborating. That's one of our gifts. And when we work together, we can change this world. And we are stronger together, but we feel so lonely. And it's being vulnerable and reaching out to other women and being open to sharing what it was like. We've got to make it easier for the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. We should not even be having to have this conversation. But unfortunately, we're still talking about women's taking leadership roles and being accepted as a leader for our unique gifts, just as men are. And it's 2025 and we're still having this
oh yeah.
conversation.
Oh yeah.
And it blows my mind. Now we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. And so I was so excited. I've been a part of your Facebook group for many years. I don't always post or comment, but I always am have my finger on what other women are saying because we need each other and it is lonely. And so if you are feeling lonely and you're listening to this, you are not alone. So let's make an effort starting today to reach out to other women and support other women along the way, because that's the only way that we're going to feel satisfied and so we don't feel so lonely, because it is very lonely. And we still have that good old boy club. I don't think it's intentional all the time, sometimes maybe, but it's just that affinity bias that everybody talks about, that we want to hang out with people who are like us. And it's easier. So it's easier for me to say to Sue, "Hey Sue, let's go have coffee. Let's get a cup of coffee," because we're both women.
Mhm.
And so I just think that we just need to be open and support other women on their journeys. And it's like, we've received hands up, and I think the only way that we can thank the people who have helped us along the way is to help other women. And that's all of us, not just Sue and me, but anybody who's listening to this also.
Yeah. Um, and to add to that, I think the loneliness also comes from, you're not always going to be likable or liked. Maybe likable. I shouldn't say likable, because I honestly, I try to be likable, and I know that's impossible when you're in a leadership role. I know, and I put this in my videos all the time. I'm supposed to shoot for respect, right? Not necessarily likability. Likability is a trap when you're in a leadership role. I know that. Um, so you can't expect people to like you necessarily when you're in a leadership role, but that contributes to the loneliness too. You can tell, like, people roll their eyes, you're the boss. There's that power imbalance, you're the boss. So that contributes to the loneliness too, because even though, yes, you know that you're going for respect, you know that you are not necessarily going to be liked. You have to make decisions that are best for the company, that are aligned with the values, all of those things. That's what makes you a valuable employee. Um, they don't make you necessarily liked, and that contributes to the loneliness. So I do agree with you. It's really important for us as women and for our sanity to have a network of women outside of work
Yes.
where we can get together and support each other. And yeah, it's a sanity check too. Oh, it's not just me. Oh, you feel this way too? Oh no, no, Sue, you're great at that. No, Beth, that's a skill that I admire in you. And what books have you read and what are you doing? And let's go for a walk. And yeah, and to make sure that we all are holding each other up and supporting each other, that we're not just um letting that negative self-talk that sometimes happens at work drag us down. As hard as we try, and let's be honest, it can, even though all of my videos are cheering each other on. No, don't let that happen, because that's not what we want. We've got to keep going. It can happen.
Yes. And everybody's scared.
Yeah.
I'm nervous about today. I'm sure you are a little bit too. So, I mean, everything we do, if we
Oh,
waited until we weren't scared, we would never get anything accomplished. And the thing is that courage is about being scared and doing it
doing it
anyway.
anyway. Well, Beth,
And
we're so hard on ourselves.
yes,
I used to do this thing where, and I hardly ever go to the grocery store anymore because I'm such a fan of Instacart now. But I used to look at, and these are so dumb, but I still look at them sometimes. The women's magazines, all of the
yes,
messaging is how we're not good enough. Lose belly fat in 10 days, make a better cake, how to be better in bed, you're not walking right, or you're not putting your mascara on, or the eyeliner you're using is wrong. You got to use brown eyeliner, like, all the time. And then when you
yes,
look at the men's magazines, it's about how awesome they are and how, right? So we're always getting these messages that there's something wrong with us. So it's nice to have that group of women so we can have that sanity check that, you know what, there's not necessarily something wrong with you. But we get that messaging from everywhere, don't we?
yes. And if I had a superpower, my superpower would be that I would be a mirror where women could look at me and see themselves as I see them. Their beauty, their gifts, what they have that is so wonderful that no one else has. I would love for that to be my superpower. I would love to give that to other women. But just know that when I'm saying this, I am harder on myself than what I expect out of myself, I would never expect out of anybody else. We have to become our own best friend. We have to talk to ourselves like we would talk to a friend. And, research shows that we get what we focus on. And for so many years, we're focused on what's wrong with us rather than what's right with us. And Clifton Strengths which was one of the things I could talk all day on, Sue. So you're just going to cut me off on this one. But the thing is it focuses on what you do right, what you're good at. And when you focus on what you're good at and what you do right, you're going to get more of it. But we spend billions of dollars, not me individually, millions of dollars every year, but we spend a lot of money trying to fix what's wrong with us rather than focusing on what's right with us. And really, we have much more that's right with us that's wrong with us, because you know what? It doesn't matter if I can't walk and chew gum. And I can practice that for all my life and I will still be a klutz. But the thing is, I don't need to walk and chew gum. If I'm going to chew gum, I can sit down. But but if I can focus on, I love people. If I focus on other people and getting to know other people, that's where I'm at my best. So instead of working on what's wrong with us, we need to focus on what's right with us. And we're going to have more of that. But we're trained to what's always wrong with us.
Yeah.
What's the first questions that's asked in your, in our evaluations is, what are your weaknesses and what are you going to work on? Rather than what are you doing well and how can I help you support you in doing more of that?
Mm-hmm.
It's always a negative, what's wrong with us rather than what's right with us. And we have a lot more to get. I mean, I could no one can say to me what I can say to myself. Horrible.
Oh,
But
yeah.
the thing is that when I'm not feeling it, when I'm not feeling confident, if I start focusing on what I'm good at, I get my confidence back. Because you can't be who anybody but who you are. I can't be anybody but who I am. Yes, we can look at other people and what they're doing well. And, I like how this person does that. Does that fit me? We can do that. But, so you have a beautiful singing voice. And so when we're back to talking about I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar, thank you for not asking me to sing because people will be turning off their sound systems right now because that's not my thing. I can't sing. I love to sing. I sing in the shower. No one can hear me. The thing is, I love to sing, but I'm never going to be a good singer. But there's other things I'm good at.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing is that, other people can sing well and I can enjoy other people singing. I can sing in the car and I can sing in the shower. No one has to hear me. But there's other things that I do that other people don't do well. And when we celebrate what each person brings, then, you know, we're at our best. And I'm sorry, but I could just talk about this all day.
It's funny because we're both coaches, right?
Yes.
And so we probably both have had clients that do this where they will scan the room looking for the person that is somehow they perceive reacting negatively when they're giving a speech or because we do that. We look for someone who we're looking for body language signals. We're looking for that's what makes us good leaders for one thing, because we have empathy and we're looking for those signals that say, oh, that person's not happy with what I'm saying, I'm not connecting with them. But we're always scanning and then we're ruminating on what did I say wrong, what did I do wrong, how could I have better connected. And so we are hard on ourselves with those things, and that makes us that maybe there's a good side to that makes us perform better next time. We can take a look at that, what could I have made better. But then there it crosses a line where we become where it becomes hurtful, where it's not serving us. We're now beating ourselves up for things that don't exist. And one of the things that I recommend that my clients do, all of them, and I do this myself too, and I don't know if you recommend this, I tell everyone to keep what I call an awesome file. Now you can call it whatever you want. I call it my awesome file. And whenever I get a compliment, my boss, another coworker, and if someone sends me an email and says, "Hey, good job," or somebody says, "This campaign performed really well because I'm in marketing," whatever it is, and it says Sue did something good. I drag it into that awesome file. And when I'm feeling bad or I'm experiencing that downside, I can go into that awesome file and sort of look at it. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean that I rely on that for my self-esteem, because absolutely not. I need to be able to know that I'm awesome without that file. But that file helps me in a number of ways. Number one, I can look at it when I'm beating myself up. And number two, it serves as a great resource for when it's time for my yearly review. I can go back through and now I have some of those things that I can reference. And it is a little pick me up. We all need that once in a while, because we are harder on ourselves. I read a book recently, where a woman, just a short story, there's a written by a PhD, a woman and a man were giving a presentation, very important presentation. The woman was, of course, over-prepared, had all of her clothes laid out. The slide deck was impeccable. And when she picked up her male colleague, he had forgotten to bring pants. And so they had to go quick shopping so he could buy a pair of pants before, like, how do you do that? How do you forget to bring pants? Stumbled through the presentation, kept saying, "Oh, I'm sorry," would go back to his notes and then make a joke about it. No, she went through that presentation, no problem. Everything was impeccable. And at the end, guess who they connected with? Him, him. And everybody came up to him and was like, "Oh, I so relate to you," and all of that. And they all ended up, and she was like, "Gosh darn it, I guess I shouldn't spend so much time and I should just show up with no pants." That's it. It was an interesting story because we have a tendency to try to be so perfect all the time. And I think it's because we've gotten the message that we have to work twice as hard. We have to be twice as good. And the guys can get away with a whole lot less because they're hired for the potential rather than the actual skill. And so they can get away with that, and we absolutely can't. But what was interesting is the audience connected with him and his humanity. And they didn't connect with her because she was so polished and perfect. She came across robotic.
And I find that too. The more I prepare sometimes for something, when I come and I just show up and I'm who I am, people will listen to me. But if I'm all prepared and I have all the statistics and I'm like blah blah blah, no one listens to me. But
Yeah.
I have a story, and I don't want to feel like I'm like comparing stories, but something that really has had a huge impact on me. We all have filler words. And a lot of us are not comfortable public speaking. And I was early in my career, and there was somebody in the room, and I would say she was probably mid to late career. And I was thrown in at the last minute that I had to get up and speak about something that I really didn't know a lot about. And I ummed. And yes, that was wrong. If you're going to be a public speaker, you cannot say Instead of like pulling me aside later, this person ticked off, and I could see her ticking off every time I said So what did I concentrate on? Not the rest of the room and what people were saying, and that the nodding and the conversation that I was bringing along. I focused on that one person who was ticking off my ums. And that's the day that I decided that that's not the person I want to be. I want to be the encourager. I want to find the good in what everybody's doing, because you know what? That's it. I'm not that I'm comparing humans to animals, but in dog training, the first thing they train is reward the behavior you want to see. Yet we think that by counting those, ticking off the ums, is going to make me a better speaker. Pulling me aside later and talking to me and giving me some tips as a more seasoned employee would have been much more boosting for me. And so that's what I like to be. I'm all about encouraging other people. And I always think about Maya Angelou, and, people will forget what you said, what they did, but how you make them feel.
Yes.
And that's why I want to be remembered. I want other women to feel empowered after being with me, not cut down. And this woman could have been having a bad day. That just could have been her number one pet peeve. Who knows what it was? But instead of focusing on the 99% of the room, I concentrated on that one person.
Of course you did, though.
And that's the thing. We're hard on yourselves. It takes 3 to 5 positives for every negative. Yet we'll focus on what's, you'll get those evaluations, and you get 99. You're spot on, Sue. You're the best. And you get this one that says, that color on you is not the best. It has nothing, or the room is too cold. And I'm concerned about the room
Yes.
instead of the 99
Isn't that
comments.
human nature, though, that for
Yes.
us to look at the negative? I mean, we all do that, don't we?
And so I just think we need to find the good in people and model that behavior by pointing out what people do well to them. If they want to know, as we all know what we've done wrong. It's not my job to be people's critics unless they're paying me to be their critic.
Yeah. Well,
And
that's, it's funny because you've come full circle back to providing a safe space
yes,
for women to
it,
grow and succeed. And the story about the ums is really important because I do think it's important to help if you're really coaching someone on public speaking. It would
yes.
be important, and like you said, to pull you aside later and say, hey, I counted the number of ums. And Sheryl Sandberg tells that story in one of the leadership books that I read not too long ago, where she was pulled aside and given that, and it was about honest candor. It was about candor feedback, and that was a very important thing, but it was done in private. So that's where I'm always saying in my videos, you praise in public and you criticize in private. And that's where that wasn't done in private. It was done right in front of you while you were giving this speech. So it wasn't handled correctly and it threw you off and probably made it even worse.
In the long run, it made me better because I could easily be that critic.
You're right. You learned a lesson
And
from that, didn't you?
and it taught me to focus on what's right with people rather than what's wrong with people. Because you know what? You don't need to tell me what's wrong with me. I know what's wrong with me. We all know, all women and men know what we know what's wrong with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's you're going to get a much better response by pointing out what people did well rather than always pointing out what they do wrong. But we don't encourage, we don't encourage. Now, and the thing is too, remember the source. If Sue's going to pull me aside, we're friends. I respect you, Sue. And if you notice something, I'm going to listen to you, but I can't listen to every critic because every critic doesn't have my best interests at heart. And we will listen to all the critics rather than all the cheerleaders. And when I say cheerleaders, I mean people who are motivating us. And the thing is that we need to go to people we trust and we have a relationship with for that heart. And I think every woman needs and every person needs their own personal board of directors, those people who can give you that advice, that hard advice. You've got the person who's going to root you on your personal board of directors. You've got that person who's going to tell you like it is. As a friend of mine says, she doesn't put sugar on her words, but I know that she has my best intentions at heart. And so when she says she does not put sugar on her words, I know she's not being cruel to me. She's just telling me like she sees it. But I trust her, so she can say that to me. But we need these people around. We need to surround ourselves with that personal board of directors, just like a company has, who will give us that advice and who will help guide us rather than just listening to anybody's advice about what they see, because they may not have our best interest at heart and they don't always know our backstory. So, their advice. So I just think that, I think that a lot of us do a lot of self-reflection because really all leadership starts from within. You have to know who you are and what you bring to the table. And so we already have that self-awareness and we do, if you're not doing a lot of self-reflection, spend some time like going back through your day and like, what would I do different? What did I do well? What would I do different? Who do I need to like say something positive to, because everything I've said to them today has been negative or been barking orders and not showing any interest in their lives beyond, what needs to be done, because that's just what needs to be done in the moment. It's those kinds of things that just makes us better because, we're busy. And if we don't reflect on what our impact is, we can't grow. And so, if I'm just coming in and just barking orders all the time, and not showing an interest in people beyond what they're doing for me, that's going to be my reputation. And so, but that self-reflection helps us know, like, who do I need to have a positive conversation with? Who have I not complimented lately and told them how I appreciate them? There's this company sent a couple employees. It was a father-daughter team that came to one of my workshops, and they go around and thank all their employees every day for coming into work.
Mm-hmm.
Now, part of me is like, well, isn't that expected? We're all supposed to be at work, but wouldn't that be nice?
Yes.
And so, hearing these things from other people, it's just like, yes, what can I learn from that? But anyway, I've talked too long, and I'll let you do some
I
talking.
love that piece of advice that you need your own personal board of directors. I love that. Um, and what I would add to that is that they need to know they're on your board.
Yes.
You need to ask them and give them permission to give you the feedback that you need. They need to know that they're on your board. They might not know it. So if you're asking for that radical candor, I refer to that book by Kim Scott a lot. If you're asking them for feedback, they need to know that they have the permission to give you that feedback. Tell me how many times I said in my last presentation, that you're
Yes.
wanting that from them and that you trust them to give you that it's helpful and they can be safe with you. I love that piece of advice. Thank you. Um, that's great. And I was just thinking about you you being up there saying all of those ums and how distracting that must have been for you. That's funny. Geez, just not the greatest experience. Um, One of the things the last time we sat down and sort of chatted about this was that as we get older, um, how, what have you done for me lately? I want to talk a little bit about, because you and I are the same age,
Yes.
we're beyond mid-career. And how, as we get older in our careers, and this is for the, mid to late 50 team, go 50s, what tell me some of your thoughts about that for because everything I read tells me that it's getting really really hard for women our age if you're entering the workforce or changing jobs. I know a lot of us are getting, right now it's hard. Some of us are getting furloughed. Some of us are, changing career, having to reinvent ourselves. What's your advice for women right now who are in that position?
And I think something to point out is the longer that we lead, the more invisible we can become. Because when you're early in your career and by the time you've got to where you and I are in our careers, we've already been served on the boards of a lot of our professional organizations, and it may be more than 10 years ago, but there's no place left for us to serve. And so people don't see us in that active leadership role. And so they're like, well, you're not staying current.
What do we do?
They don't. And so I just think that one thing that we all have to be committed to is continually growing. And so staying interested in our career, staying up to date on, technology,
Mhm.
continuously taking professional development workshops, hiring a coach. Um, but we've got to stay current because people start forgetting about us.
Yeah.
And, you know, um,
There's so
there's
much
such,
free information out there too.
yes.
Like
And, and the
you're
thing is
watching this on
too,
YouTube right now. There's so
yes,
much on YouTube that's free that you can learn about, if you are struggling with IT. Oh my gosh, and now with AI, there's so
yes.
much you can learn for free to help get you up to speed if you're not there.
And if we take on a role of mentoring younger women, we can learn from them.
Hmm.
We forget that that when you mentor, you're getting mentored also, and that they're teaching us as much as maybe we're teaching them. Maybe we have the history with the company or with here, look, this is what I experienced. here are some tidbits about what to avoid, but they're coming in with a fresh perspective and with new ideas. And so we can, they're bringing that technology knowledge that maybe, we're not full as comfortable with. And so it's a two-way street. And so when we're mentoring, we're also getting mentored. And I've had the opportunity to mentor a few women, and I probably have learned more from them than anything that I imparted to them. And so, I can help them with navigating some of those roadblocks or challenges that we face in the workplace, because I've been there and done that. But they're bringing me new ideas and new ways of doing things. And so I just always feel like I learn more from the people that I mentor than I could ever give to them. And we can learn from each other. And it's just being open to that. And that, some people are like, oh, here comes the new person. They're not going to stay long, or they're going to just bring up all these new ideas. I'm so energized by those new ideas. And and I think that helps keep me current, because one of the reasons I wanted to retire from my position before people started thinking, I wonder when she's going to retire. I wanted to retire when I was at the top, somewhat at the top of my game, instead of being a has-been. But I've always wanted to go to work for myself. So it was a perfect opportunity for me also. I just also thought I would never be able to retire. And I just took that chance and did it. And I think I was born to be retired.
She's loving it. I like the idea of the mentoring relationship, because especially if you've been with the same organization for a long time, what you might bring to the table is institutional knowledge. You know who knows what, who has the power here, there, even if it's the influencers in the organization that definitely or may not have the title, but they have the influence. And you bring all of that knowledge to the new person. You can introduce them around, you can make those connections with them. And the mentoring that you're doing with them gives them that shortcut that otherwise they would have to learn those things the hard way, the long way. And then that gives you access to their fresh perspective, their new ideas, which does energize you. I had an intern a couple of years ago, and I am up on all the technology. I'm in digital marketing. You cannot get stale in digital marketing. I'm reading constantly the new technology. I'm always reading AI. I'm very, very up on all the latest stuff because I'm constantly educating myself, and it's fun. I enjoy that. But it was so fun to have this young intern on my team, because she really energized me as a young woman entering her career. And I could just see, here's what a young woman entering a corporate environment is going to be like. And um, one of the things that I had to teach her was to stop apologizing every time she had a question for me. I had to, I just kept saying, please stop doing that. That was an ongoing challenge throughout the entire summer for her. She was great. She was really talented. She understood how to do things, but she apologized every time she had a legitimate question about her work. And she would apologize for bothering me. And that was, as an aside, that was one of the things that I said, if you come out of this with nothing else, please stop doing that. You are allowed to ask questions as a new person. We expect that you're going to have questions, and I am here to help you on board. So don't come to me with an apology, So I really like that response. That's an important tidbit. Thank you.
And I apologize for everything. So I understand. I just yesterday
was a habit.
Such a habit. And I felt like I apologize for breathing. But the thing is maybe, if you are, for anybody out there who has an intern, a new employee, say, I want you to ask me any question you have. It is okay to ask questions. It's okay not to know everything. You're not expected to know everything. There is a learning curve, and help people. We need to set that stage for people. But the thing is too, is one of the lessons that I learned, and I can kick myself for not taking advantage of this a lot more when I was younger, is we're afraid to ask people like to be mentors to us. It doesn't have to be a formal mentor. It can just be having coffee and
Right.
talking, but we think everybody's so busy, or, why would they want to help me? But the thing is that I love helping people. So why would somebody want to help me? And it energizes me when I get to talk to somebody who's new in their career, because they give me energy, they give me hope for the future. I'm learning from them. Does it take time out of my day? Yes, but it's a valuable part of my day. But we're so afraid to ask because no one likes to be told no. But you know what? If somebody says, I really don't have the time right now, it's nothing personal. It doesn't mean that you're not valuable. It just means they don't have the time. But
Yeah.
we're so, like, I shouldn't say everybody else, but me, I was always so afraid to ask for that help. And I just thought that doing good work would get me promoted, and it doesn't get you promoted. We need people who are promoting us. And the only way people will promote us is if we have relationships with them. So it's
Yeah.
okay to ask other people to coffee just for that informal advice. How would I'm dealing with this. What advice how would you handle this if you were in my situation? I'm not happy in my job right now. I'm feeling a little bit stale. I don't know. I don't feel comfortable talking to my boss about this. How do I bring up that I'd like to take on more responsibility? We want Other people want to help. If you're a helpful person, other people want to help. And it's okay. It's okay to ask. And that's how we learn. But you know what? That person I may not be able to help that person right then, but a couple years from now, there may be a job opening, or there may be an opportunity where I could use that person's expertise, or somebody I know could use that person's expertise, and I can introduce them because the relationship is built.
Yeah.
And
There's a
so,
weird study out there that says if you ask someone for a favor, it actually increases your likability in their mind. They like you better because you ask them for a favor. So don't be afraid to ask for help. You're exactly right. And the worst they can say is no, or they might say, I don't have the time, but so and so in such and such department might. And it goes back to having that circle of women that hold each other up. And I think that almost brings me to my next point. You segued brilliantly right into it. It was about visibility because you said just before when we were talking about getting older, we become invisible in our role. You said that, and that kind of scares me because visibility is the only thing outside of, obviously you need to do quality work, you need to work hard, that goes without say, you have to have quality work. But if no one sees it because you're afraid to talk about it, you apologize for questions that you have, you don't have any mentors, you have no one advocating for you, because God forbid you advocate for yourself, or because it comes across as bragging, then how do you get a promotion? Well, talk to me, because one of the things you said was that it's not bragging if we actually did it. And if we have a mentor that can also put in a word for the work that we've been doing, how do we make our work visible in these multi-tiered organizations that that can make it really hard to be visible when you're doing high quality work? Tell us how we do that.
one thing I think that we can do for others is, when you see somebody doing good work, publicly acknowledge them. Hey, Sue, I saw that work you did on that committee. Great job. Because when we recognize other women, then other people will take notice.
And you do
So,
that publicly. So are you copying my boss when you do that? Are you
I think
copying other people?
I suggest, when you write a thank you to somebody for something that they've done for you, CC their boss.
Okay. And then I put that in my awesome
I'm
file.
just going to say this. I was not comfortable doing that, but how does that boss know what that employee's doing unless we're sharing that with them? So
Yes.
if we come across, when I'm at a meeting and I see somebody, like, say I've done some committee work with somebody in my organization when I was working at OSU, and I would see that person's boss, I would always make a point of, like, saying, hey, I just want to let you know about Sue's work. She's been fantastic on this committee because you know what? That boss doesn't know it. The only
That's
time
right.
your boss knows what something's going on is somebody doesn't like it. People will complain, they won't compliment. And, we're so used to putting out fires, we only pay attention to the things that need immediate attention. So we need, first of all, it is not bragging. If you have done something, it is not bragging to talk about it. Talking about something you're going to do, that may be seen as bragging, but if you've done it, you own it and we celebrate it. So, as you keep that list of those thank yous and that I can't remember what file
My
you called
awesome
it.
file.
Keep a list of, I used to write down like things that I did, and then I would do like a weekly report for myself, kind of like the projects things that I got done.
Right.
And I would highlight a few. I wouldn't send my boss a whole report. Sometimes I would, and I would just kind of let them know, I was at this meeting and I talked to so and so, and we were discussing this. I just want to give you a heads up in case they come to you and talk about this. And just keeping our bosses in the loop of things that is showing interest that we're showing. So when you're doing this, you're doing it because you want to, first of all, our boss's job is to get rid of that red tape and give us everything we need to do our jobs. Our job is to make our bosses look good by doing good work. But if we can help them, because I know that my boss isn't as good at making connections, and that's my thing. I can say, like, I talked to so and so and they know so and so. So if you want to, and so I can help make those connections, because I just naturally see the connections between people. And if your boss knows you, it's not like you're trying to like do that person's job. It's just that if if we're doing these one-on-one check-ins like we should be doing, and we know what our employees are good at, we need to capitalize on that, because when they do a good job, it makes us look good. When our employees do a good job, we look good.
Yes.
And our job is to run interference to make so they can do a good job to make us look good. And then we make our bosses look good by getting our work done. And, and that's what it's all about. But how can they know we're doing good work if we never say anything?
You're so right. And in a perfect world, they do know what we're working on, and it does make them look good. We don't live in that world, and
No.
very often our boss has no idea what we're working on. It just magically gets done, and they don't really realize that we did it. And there's so much that's invisible to them. And if it doesn't get communicated to them somehow, they don't realize all of the invisible labor that's happening. How do we make that visible? What's your recommendation?
Say that again. Say that again.
How do we make our work visible to our boss? Because so much of us, especially women, we don't
Yes.
want to feel like we're bragging. We don't want to feel like we're boasting, like that bombastic guy the sales guy that's always bragging about the numbers and everything. We don't want to look like that. We're brought up to be humility, humble, keep our head down. Oh no, it was the team. I had a good team, right? We don't take compliments. We say it was the team that did it. But that could really cost you a raise, a promotion. That could cost you
Yes.
a lot of things if you're not making your work visible. So yes, you need to have relationships like you've said, but you also need to have your work visible across the departments and up the chain. How do we do that for ourselves if no one's advocating for us like you do?
And that we do need people to advocate for us, but I think participating on committees outside of our departments is a wonderful way of being visible, and then doing good work and following through and doing whatever that committee work is. If you're planning the company Christmas holiday party or the company picnic, or the volunteering, but part of it is showing up and being seen.
Yeah.
And that people don't, if we're sitting in our offices all the time, people don't realize what we're doing. And in this world of virtual, where I spent a lot of the end of my career working from home,
Mhm.
it's harder to stay viable because, you're not at the, for lack of better words, the water cooler. We don't happen to see people. So we have to be more intentional in our relationships. And so, if you're not having one-on-ones with your boss, ask for, a monthly one-on-one. Can I have half an hour of your time? And then, share some successes, share some of your concerns. But when you bring a concern to your boss, bring some possible solutions to it.
Yeah.
It's not complaining. You're being helpful.
Right.
And you're also showing interest in any way that we can help our bosses by giving what we give best. And so, if you're really good at organizing and your boss isn't really organized, doing some of that organizing for him or her, it's easier for you because, I'm good at the big picture. I'm not good at details. I always want people on my team who are good with the details. So I'll remember those people who are doing the details for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but having that relationship, and so you have to be open and say, you know what, I'm going to miss details when I have a new employee. I'm going to miss details at time, and your job is to make sure that I do not miss those
Mm-hmm.
details. So when I miss
Mm-hmm.
those details, you're reminding me because I'd rather you remind me than somebody outside of our department.
Yeah.
And so and if you can build that trust with your employees, and then as you become a supervisor, if you model that and you share your expectations, it's really, really helpful. And then people know that that you're not in it for yourself. You're doing this for the good, and when we live our gifts, when you're doing, put me in charge of something that's like, put me in charge of numbers. I'm not going to do a good job. I'll work really hard. You have me doing something that I'm good at. It's not going to take me much time. I'm going to be passionate about it. I'm going to have fun doing it. We all like doing those things. And so really it's finding what we're good at and then sharing that with sharing that. So, I'm not going to lead the singing. That's not my thing. Sue, you can lead the singing. And I don't mean to like pick on something like that, but the thing is that if that's what you're good at, then that's where I spend my time. So I'm really good at relationships and like promoting things. So I always volunteer for the marketing committees or the public relation committees, and what's going on because it's easy and it's fun for me.
Some of us are introverts, or we worry that we're bragging when we,
Yes.
and that's where I'm always nudging, especially my clients, because that's going to hold you back if you have that mindset that you can't talk about or you shouldn't talk about what you accomplished this week. And that's where, like, if you have a new boss or a relatively new boss, what I usually recommend that my clients do is ask them how they would like that visibility. That's, do you want to be copied on emails to leadership and to stakeholders? Do you want to be invited to my meetings? Maybe you don't need to attend the meeting, but you want to see it on your calendar that it's happening. And then when I send the notes, you end up CC'd on the notes, so that you do have that regular visibility to what's going on underneath you, what's happening, or on the team, without necessarily having to be fully involved or in the weeds in it. Or maybe you just want a quick summary at the end of the week. Here are 5 things that we accomplished this week. And if you even do that, I guarantee you probably 80 to 90% of your colleagues are not doing that. So you're already winning by sending your boss a note that says, here's what I accomplished this week. Now, maybe they don't want that. So it's about communication. How do you want to be informed of what I am accomplishing? You have to ask, and then they'll tell you, well, this will work for me. And then you just don't fall off doing it. Keep doing it regularly so that your work is visible. I beat that horse constantly, especially for women, because it's icky for us to brag about what we're doing. We have this delusion that if we put our heads down and work really hard, that we'll somehow be rewarded for it and that we'll somehow be promoted for it. And it's just not going to happen. The person who talks themselves up and works on building those relationships, like you said, they're the ones that are going to get the opportunities, even if they're less skilled than you are. And that's the frustrating part, but it's really true in the corporate environment. So I'm really I'm really encouraged by our talk this evening about, making those relationships, having a board of directors around you, helping each other, mentoring each other, because I think all of those things together can really help will lift women up into those leadership roles because we need more women in leadership roles. We're really
Yes.
not we're not where we need to be yet at all, like you said at the beginning of our talk, are we?
No. And you know, what I found, like I'm an intuitive. So, I go with my gut. And if I say, if I would, when I used to go, when I was young in my career and I come in and I say, this is what we need to do. Why do we need to do this? Because I feel this is I know this is the right thing to do. When I started bringing data, so when you can show like an increase or, that our productivity goes up when this
Oh,
happens,
right.
anytime you can share data, people are on it. So if you're not comfortable, if that's not bragging, if you can show data, so anytime you can show data. But when I started coming in and saying, I think this is what we need to do, and here's why, and here's the data behind it, people will come on board. But if Beth says, just do it because I think it's the right thing to do,
Yeah.
why would you listen? Why would you listen to me? But
Yeah.
when you can back it up, so if you don't feel comfortable, um, if you feel like it's bragging, any kind of data that you can share with your boss, like I've increased my productivity by this amount this week, or I came up with this process and it's saving this, anytime that you can show data, people understand data. Um, and they like data because it's facts, it's not feeling. And so, so if you're not comfortable like sharing your wins, share the data.
Yeah, that's a very important point. You need to be able to back up what you're saying. And that's where, I accomplished these 5 things this week.
Yes.
And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And your boss needs to be able to see those. Um, and I would say that those 5 things need to be tied to the business goals.
Yes.
You need to understand how the work that you're doing is tied to the larger goals of the organization. And if you don't know that, you might be working on the wrong things. So you
Mhm.
really need to be able to work with your direct supervisor so that you make sure that what you're working on is priority to your boss. Make sure you're aligned there. You might be wasting company time
Mhm.
and working on things that don't matter to them. And if they don't have
Yes.
visibility to it, then you're wasting time and you don't know it. So that's something that I would caution you against too. Those weekly check-ins are important for that reason too. Make sure that what you're working on, because priorities get changed. What was
Yes.
important last week? Oh no, we're not working on that anymore. Now we need you to be working on this. And your boss may or may not tell you that. So sometimes things don't get communicated. Make sure that you are, it's your job to do the communicating and make sure that you are working on things that make the company that align with what the company cares about.
And if
So
and and this time has gone by so quickly,
I
Sue. I
know,
can't
I
believe
know. I
I
want
could
to
talk to you
end.
all day.
Thank you so much, Beth, for spending this time with me tonight. I want to end by asking you, we've got probably women in all different leadership roles, women who are just starting their careers, women who are in our shoes who've been in a leadership role for a while. And I want to go back to this was long before I was in a leadership role. I had just started at the Ohio State University, and I went to a seminar. Um, and this was actually the attorney. This has been many years ago. I'll show you how many years ago it was. I got a chance to see the attorney that argued the Roe versus Wade case in front of the Supreme Court. She was the keynote speaker at this seminar. And her advice to all of us women in the room was practice leadership in any way, shape, or form that you can. Whether you're whether you're on the PTO at school, whether you're the band mom, and which I was, I was the marching band mom. Um, I always ended up in some kind of a leadership role, treasurer on the band boosters. Um, tell me, what would you recommend that women do to practice leadership now, even lead from any seat, in other words? Maybe they're not in a leadership role now, but how can they practice so that they can get there at some point?
And speaking of like marching band, you only perform as good as you practice, but how do you practice leadership? And
Right.
so it's taking on every opportunity that you can. It's following through, doing what you say you're going to do. It's looking out for other people. It's not about just doing it for yourself, but how can I bring other people along with me? Because time, every interaction we have with somebody is leaving our legacy. It's not like an end of life thing. It's every interaction that we have. So if I'm walking down the street and there's a piece of trash on the street and choose to pick it up and throw it away, somebody may see it, somebody may not, but maybe somebody sees that. And then the next time they see trash, they'll pick it up and throw it away. So every time I treat somebody with kindness, every time I choose to collaborate with somebody rather than compete with somebody, I'm setting a precedent. Every time we do what we say we're going to do, we follow through, and it's not just talk. So, that follow through, helping other people, but really, when we do what we're good at, that's when we shine. I can't be you, you can't be me. We can only be ourselves. And so when we bring other people with us, so we're not doing this alone. So, it's like help one, teach one, help one.
Mm-hmm.
We're helping people everywhere, because the hope is that if you help me, then I'm going to turn and help somebody else who will turn and help somebody else who will help and that ripple effect. But the thing is we can only do this if we're all working together, and is that we need to build other women up and support people in their journey to be their best. That's how we practice leadership.
Yeah, I love it. We
But
need
we have
to,
to be our best too.
yeah, the
We talk all
sisterhood.
day about like taking leisure and work-life integration and all those other things. But the thing is when we live our gifts and we are at our best, we are sharing the best about who we are with others, and we allow others to be themselves and share their best. And that's all that matters.
I have one more thing to say.
Okay.
OH.
IO.
Thank you, Beth. I so appreciate having you tonight. It's been a joy talking to you. And I really thank for everyone that joined us tonight. This will be live on my YouTube channel. And everyone have a wonderful evening. This will be here for forever. So everyone will be able to see it. Beth, share it if you didn't get a chance to see it. Go ahead and share it with your audience too, for those that didn't get to join. But thank you so much, Beth. It's been a joy having you.
You, Sue, and keep doing what you're doing, because you're really working to promote other women, and that's what we need more of. So keep up your good work, Sue.
That's the plan. Have a good night.
You too.